Hi, I'm Cody Alexander with MatchQuarters.com. On this concluding episode for the 2019 season, we're going to focus on Gregg Williams and the New York Jets and Jon Gruden and the Raiders and how the Jets attacked the Raiders' empty sets. We're going to look at 3 different clips. We're going to see 2 clips of Tampa 2 and then a final clip of really one of the best practices in terms of if you want to run a sim pressure. It's one of the most popular ones, and it's a really good one against empty, and it's also good against 10 personnel. So just something to look at to kind of give you an idea. If you paid attention to sim pressures at all, you've probably seen it. So the goal of this series was to look at the top 10 DVOA or efficiencies on offense and defense. The Jets and the Raiders both are kind of in that middle range of offense and defense. And so wanted to take a look at some things. One of the trends that I did see in this game is the use of Tampa 2 versus empty. And so you can see right here, how are we going to get to a Tampa 2 set out of empty, and what Gregg Williams does is kind of use a drop 8 Tampa 2, which I kind of really like, and I think it's clever out of this fly front, especially if you're used to seeing a fly front that's 2 5s and 2 3s, and usually you see games with this with the 4 down front, and usually this is kind of the go-to versus empty. But what Gregg Williams did on early downs was run some Tampa 2. So the first 2 clips that we're going to look at are going to go over that. First clip, we're going to take a look at Tampa 2 versus empty. What we're going to get is your very simple snag concept. So if you look here, you're going to get this, you're going to get here, and then on the other side, you're going to get the fade out to the boundary. So it's very simple. It's a high percentage throw. It's easy for the quarterback to pick out. In Tampa 2, what ends up happening here, and if you look at the leverage, and this is kind of why I picked this clip, is that what you're going to get is you're going to get him here. You're going to get him trapping the out. He's actually going to sit inside of 2. He's outside of 2. But there's really not anybody for this 3 person. So if he were to sit, remember, he's bailing out of here. He's what you call a pole runner. So he's running down the middle of the field, looking at the quarterback. What ends up happening if you option this guy is that he can read leverage. So if he keeps staying outside, he can kind of sneak back inside underneath this player, and that kind of gives him a vision. Because remember, these 3 guys are building that triangle over these 2 receivers. So you have your 3 over 2 and what looks like to be a 4 over 3 over here. So in this, it looks like everything's fine. What Gregg Williams did, and what I like out of this fly front, because usually what you see is kind of these games where you get pushed and you get these up and unders and this. But the other thing from the fly front that you can do is, because these guys are in wide 5s and they're so wide, is that he now can rock out and he now can bounce out. So what ends up happening in this is that what you're going to see is he's going to end up taking that snag. He now can sit in that middle part. He's going to trap the out of 2. Obviously, with the fade route, he's going to be on top of that. He now is in the middle for anything that might be crossing or on the over route. So what they've essentially done is they've created these lanes to where it's impossible for this out route or for him to option. He's got somebody on either side, and even him, he can't go out and he can't push in because of that. So it's a really clever way on an early down. Instead of attacking and sending the house on empty, instead he decides to go ahead and play more of a 3-man rush with a Tampa 2. So you can see right here, with the proximity of the tight end, it's really easy for that D end to just kind of open up, hinge, and latch onto that guy. You can see the middle 3rd dropper. He's running the pole. He doesn't feel any vertical threat, so he now is looking at the quarterback. He's now visiting the quarterback, knowing that if he's out, that corner has him. So now he's looking at the quarterback to see if maybe we'll get a follow or we'll get a whip route. You can see that the tight end works out, so he sits and squats on it. This guy's covered up, so he's canceled out. The vertical's taken. Now his vision has to come back over here with him being able to what I call a squat technique. So he's not just going to hammer down on just because he went out. So if we go back to the very beginning, watch this corner here. He's not just going to go ahead and take that out route. See, so even though he turned out, he stops, but he's going to sit. He's not just going to hammer down, because what he doesn't want is to hammer down on this, and then he's just going to curl up with leverage on him. So this is what I call a squat technique, and he's just going to sit right there at the sticks. so which makes him have to hold it. The only thing that he can do now is work back inside. You're going to see him come underneath and make the play here, and the play's dead. So you don't always have to heat up empty. You can be clever with it if you're a 4-down front and you've been playing a bunch of games and hey, they're just trying to attack the middle. This is a great way of kind of modifying that Tampa to really kind of flood this zone. So if you think about it, now you have 5 over 3. You have your triangle over here, so you've got your 3 over 2 here on your fade out. So this is kind of like empty 101 route. This is the snag with an out. You're getting a fade out off of alignment. You should know that it's coming. Good trap technique by the corner, working inside, visioning 2. Okay, he's going to keep staying he's going to stay vertical until 2 comes out to him. He snaps down on it, and we get a pass breakup. So win the first down. Now you get 2nd and long. Defense wins it first. Don't panic on empty. Don't have to rush a bunch of guys or play games. Drop 8. Gregg Williams with the incomplete. Here in the second quarter, we again see another situation of empty. We get the, not necessarily a fly front this time. He's not real wide, but you can see here he's wide. We get the flex tight end. We get the same kind of similar look as we did in the first quarter. So instead of getting a snag from him and an out here, we're actually going to get the vaunted 5 verticals. It is real, folks. We did actually get 5 verticals from empty versus a Tampa 2. Most of the time you don't get to see 5 verticals from this. It's just too hard. It's just too hard to defend, especially if you get this. But if you think about it, you're in 4-down territory. You're almost in field goal range. Why not go ahead and take a shot? So you can see how a Tampa 2 works. The issue with having hard corners in a Tampa 2 is that if you were to slam these guys down, it's going to be really hard for if you push vertical. So here you have the Raiders thinking, okay, all we got to do is kind of find the guy that's open. So the corner up top actually works out with him, more or less trying to feel that. You see a vertical stem and him burning off right here. You start working out, shove him, and then hinge open. I really kind of like this hinge and climb right here by this corner. Notice how he gets the 2-hand jam. Normally you don't want a 2-hand jam, but when you're in a situation where you're playing the hard flat, it's okay to go ahead and hinge that guy open and really make sure we get contact. And notice how wide he gets pushed. That really kind of defines this for the safety. So the safety's actually going to work with number 2 as he's going and sitting right on top of him. And this is a good job by the nickel right here, or that backer right here, kind of walling that hash and kind of make that thing kind of go a little bit wide and deep. You see the pole runner, which is the kind of the telltale sign of Tampa 2. He's going to just sling into the middle of the field. He has 3 up. So if 3 goes up here, he always opens up to 3. If 3 goes up here, he's just going to work and he's going to trail that low hip. So you can see that right here, he's going to work and trail that low hip. What that does is it allows him to really hang on the outside shoulder of number 2. And if he bends back in, he's right on top of it. The corner sinking 2 really helps with this vertical. So kind of one of the things that you don't want versus a Tampa 2 is, again, hammer these guys down, and then you get these verticals outside. And now this guy's stressed. He's got to get to the apex of 1 and 2 running down. And so you just kind of pick him off, especially with him opening up to 3. You kind of look either here or here to throw it. He's looking front side the whole time. He's looking right at the guy the whole time. He sees him down the middle of the field, and so you think, hey, this is our big time tight end versus kind of a linebacker. I'm going to go with that matchup. But because of the Tampa 2 and because of the depth, that just becomes such a hard throw. On the bottom side, you see this squat technique and hinge and open. This is a great example, again, of that hinge and open. He's just going to work and wall that guy. So even though he's inside leverage, and notice he kind of hinges and he's looking at number 2, 2 doesn't show up. So I'm just going to keep climbing. And again, that really helps define that for the safety. Safety center field turn and is over the top. So again, you see the drop 8 on first down using Tampa 2. This time we get verticals, and you kind of see how everything ends up working. You end up getting a man on every vertical, and because of the collision and hinge here, this becomes a really hard throw, especially in the NFL. That's a long way to go. So he makes the easy throw down the middle into coverage, hoping, hey, we either get a penalty or we get a reception. Instead, you get a PBU, and now it's second and long. So again, second example of running this drop 8 Tampa 2 scheme by the Jets on an early down. Raiders try and go with the five verticals against it. For our final look against empty, we're going to take a look at one of the most popular sim pressures, especially when offenses in their pass pro are going to fan their front. So here you can see that it's your typical 5-0 front. You've got the 6-man hovering around here. So what you're going to end up getting is the offensive line is going to end up taking it man. But let's look at the coverage piece part of this first. What this ends up looking like is really just a double roll, what I would call a double roll, or like a three high safety look. So you can kind of see, you can call this Tampa, but really what it ends up looking like is kind of what I call a double roll or a double cloud, where you're here, you've got your 3 safeties high, it's really cover 3. These guys now have the flat, and your 2 pop-out players, which are going to be here and on the other side, are going to take those hooks. So what you end up with is you end up with 1, 2, 3, 4 under. You've got your 3 deep, which would look like a typical cover 3 scheme. So what the Raiders end up doing is running a little bit of what I would call kind of like an inverted Y corner with kind of a sail and go by the number 3. So why I call it inverted is normally here is what you would see. You would see something like this, but instead they kind of invert it. He comes in here, he pushes out, and then he kind of runs this little sail go right here. And then on the bottom you have your kind of just your atypical high-low, where he's going to snag up and option that thing, and then you've got kind of your corner trying to use that space to do that. So on the back end, the nice thing about these sim pressures is that you don't necessarily have to run a particular coverage. You can run whatever you want on the back end because it's still your regular 7-man distribution, just as long as you're not trying to sling a guy from one side to the other, where that can get confusing. So here we're going to see what I call a double roll. You can see here he takes the outside. Both these guys sit in, so he's walled, he's contained. He would take the inside, he takes the outside. So if this thing were to go here, you could see how he would pick it up. Instead it goes here, now he picks it up. We have a guy on top. He sees that guy here, so he works out, so he stays right here. So you actually end up getting everything nice, and then a nice little guy in the middle to cut any kind of crosser that comes. So now let's let that play out. You can see the coverage piece right here. So as you can tell, the throw has to be made really quick. So now let's focus on the manipulation part. So here you have your atypical overload front, right? You've got a guy here, you've got a guy here, and a guy here. So you got 5-man front. So what ends up happening if they're going to fan it in empty, what you end up getting is man blocking. Okay, and this is kind of where things work. So if you notice, these guys are fanning this way, these guys are fanning this way. What that creates is an alley, and that's where this guy comes in, and he's going to shoot through the alley. Okay, so on the snap, let's take a look at the left side first. On the snap, he's going to stab down. That's going to make him work out. Okay, as he's working out, he has to honor that as well. That's going to create space. So as they're both working this way, you can't assume that he's going to just go and then this guy's going to pop out, because he could easily come in here and then he would be responsible for that guy. But as we see, he starts working. Now, the moment that he starts flashing into the middle, this guy has to come. Well, by that time, it's too late. Okay, he can't reach him. If you go, now let's look on this side. And this one's relatively simple. Okay, he's going to stab and work out. He ends up flashing over here. He occupies the center. That way he can't work back over here. This guy really doesn't have anybody to block. Okay, and so once you get across here, now he would fit on here, and that's what you would call a natural. So these guys are really supposed to be setting the edge, okay? And what you can get is, if I miss the quarterback, I'm going to at least force him over here to where now I'm going to get that natural by 96, which is what essentially it looks right there. So let's look at it from the top. So again, you're going to get these guys fanning this way. You're going to get these guys fanning this way. In a 5-0 front like this, you're going to get man blocking, okay? So everybody's going to take him. The nice thing is these guys are going to pop out. Okay, these guys are going to occupy here, and then what you're going to get is that nice tunnel right there where he's going to pop through. So let's look at it from the get right there. He steps into the throw. Throw has to be early. It's not a very good throw, and the defender actually almost picks it off right here. So again, the nice little nuance though, and don't lose track of this, is that he's going to aim for this shoulder right here. Because if it pops out and gets bad, it's going to be, he now is the natural guy over here, which I really like. So in the Saban vernacular, this is what we would call bears. And normally they have a one wrap behind it, but here they are using what I call a double roll from kind of their dime personnel with their 3 safety look on the back. So again, nice sim pressure. This is one of the best practices in sim pressures. 5-0 front, put a guy in the middle, have him shoot, especially if he is. And a lot of times, and the reason why this one works is a lot of times you'll have the slide away from the 3 or the slide to the 3, and then that's when you really want to send your edge rushers here and let these guys pop out. But instead, you're getting that dual fan. So he's here, they're over here. Now you've created that rush lane, and you're going to rush through it. So make sure, again, when you're looking at this stuff and why are teams doing this, or I'm trying to design some sim pressures, it really comes down to how teams are going to block, especially in empty and others. The other nice thing about this, let's say there is a running back in the backfield. He would be responsible for this, and what that means is if he stays in, this guy can kind of either have a two-way go, or if the back ends up stepping up, that he fits outside, and then he could be able to knife inside, and it ends up adding. So it ends up being a 5-man pressure if that back flares. So it's really nice. In empty, you can still run it because you have your 7-man coverage. So again, taking a look at it, this is how the Jets chose to attack the empty sets by Oakland. I think you look at Tampa 2 coming back. I think you look at really best practice and sim pressures to give you some ideas on what to do on third down and what NFL teams are trying to do. So again, thanks for joining me on episode 10 of the NFL chess match with Match Quarters. See you again soon. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at @the_coach_A, and always subscribe to the YouTube as I'm adding more things all the time.